First Take fam, so Hall of Fame quarterback Brett Favre says he did not believe that Derek Chauvin meant to kill George Floyd. On his podcast, Bowling with Favre, he said, quote, "I find it hard to believe, and I'm not defending Derek Chauvin in any way. I find it hard to believe, first of all, that he intentionally meant to kill George Floyd. That being said, his actions were uncalled for. I don't care what color the person is on the street. I don't know what led to that video that we saw where his knee is on his neck, but that man had thrown in the towel." Favre said last week on the Andrew Klavan show he wanted politics out of sports because he believed it was hurting games and agreed with people deciding not to watch sports anymore. Axe, what do you think of Brett Favre's comments?
Well, it's hypocritical of him, of course, to say politics should be out of sports unless it's his politics. I don't think Brett Favre is being dishonest here, though. I think Brett Favre believes what he's saying because it's an issue of empathy. I think he, in this case, is having an empathetic connection with Chauvin and maybe not with George Floyd. And he's thinking to himself, like, it's hard to relate to someone who would sit on someone's neck, especially a law enforcement official, a cop. He's thinking that's the good guy, right? Why is he sitting on someone's neck? Why would he mean to kill him? And he finds it hard to get his mind around that. I believe he's being honest, if sort of misguided in his thinking. But I think there's a larger issue here, Stephen A. I don't even think Brett Favre sees that he's interjecting his opinion here, and it's an overlap of politics and social issues and sports when he says what he says. And this gets back to Kaepernick for me. Stephen A., remember, my whole point about Kaepernick, when people said he's injecting politics into sports, is, in fact, if kneeling during the national anthem is speech and protest, then surely standing is also speech, right? If one is speech, then the other is also speech. And so my larger point was those who say, no, this is a national anthem, this isn't political, everyone has to stand, in ways they don't even realize, in fact, are injecting sports with politics. As soon as you have a ceremony like that where lack of participation is viewed as a political statement, then the ceremony itself is political, whether you like it or not. But that's not the way a lot of people see it. It's confusing for them. Wait a minute. We're all in America. We have to love America. This is the way it works. And so that's okay. That's not political. Favre simply doesn't understand that. He didn't understand that then. And I think when he talks like he talks now, after saying we shouldn't have politics, with sports, I don't like it, he doesn't even understand that what he's really saying is we shouldn't have politics other than my own. We shouldn't have people's worldviews on social issues other than my own. He just views his own as the default setting. And that's a lot of what these protests are about. The default setting throughout our country's history seems to be the view of white America. And what people have been saying and athletes have been saying and protests in our streets have been saying is that normal doesn't work for everyone. We need a new normal. And Favre has viewed, it seems to me, through his comments over the last several years, the new normal as political, the old normal as just normal and apolitical. And he's wrong about that. I don't think he's lying. I don't even think he has ill will here, Stephen A. I think he's only capable at this moment of seeing it from one narrow perspective.
I actually like Brett Favre. I like him a lot. I know I've been critical of him in the past, those last years in the NFL because he was a bit prima donna-ish in terms of not making up his mind as to whether or not he wanted to retire or not. But I've had the pleasure of meeting him on several occasions. I actually genuinely like him. I could say I'm disappointed in these comments, but I don't think that's really what this is about, to be quite honest with you. I'm going to tell you what I think it's about. I think it's the epitome of white privilege. And I think that Brett Favre would do himself a service by simply saying, look, I'm a white guy, I'm a black guy, I just don't get it. I'm not a black guy, I just don't get it. Because he doesn't get it. And that's really what this comes down to. On far too many occasions, again, thinking about the people that I know in the community, the people that I know in terms of on the left side with the progressives, on the right side with conservatives. There have been many conservatives that I've spoken to in the past. I know Sean Hannity. I know Mark Levin and these guys, and I respect the hell out of them. They know I don't agree with them most of the time, but I'm certainly not going to castigate them because of some of the positions that they've taken. What I would say is that on many, many occasions when I'm highlighting something, I'm simply saying that as a black person, you just don't know. Numbers don't always tell the story. There's so many things that happen to black people that you don't realize that, that don't get recorded, that don't get told. Think about it from the standpoint of the lovely 17-year-old that videotaped Derek Chauvin that Molly brought up yesterday. If she hadn't videotaped it, you also pointed out, Max, what the news headlines were about George Floyd's murder. We would have never known if we didn't have the video showing what Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd. And so many times the true stories don't get told. And so when somebody like Brett Favre comes along, and Brett Favre is of the mentality, I don't want politics, I don't want this in my life, I don't believe this was the case. It's because a lot of times white folks make this huge mistake. And I hope white folks over America are watching me right now with what I'm about to say. If you're not racist and you're not prejudiced and you don't engage in heinous acts, you don't exercise entitlement, you don't look at yourself as above, people because of the color of their skin, and you don't act and conduct yourself that way, and more importantly, you speak out against those who look like you but think like that, okay? We're not talking about you. The reason why it's important to mention that, Max, is because what you're seeing from the Brett Favres of the world and a plethora of folks throughout white America are people who personalize things as if you're talking about them, like they would do something like that. So they inherently feel this insatiable, just gravitation towards coming to the defense of somebody because they actually look at it as defending themselves, as if we're talking about them, when that's absolutely positively not the case. Brett Favre wouldn't have done something like that. The individuals that I mentioned earlier wouldn't have done something like that. But when they see us going off and they look at the white population in this country that was once over 80% and is now dwindled to 60% and is sliding, and they see the elevation of minority communities coming into this country, et cetera, they're worried. And because they're worried about what they're witnessing here, they feel this need to hold on to something, to act like they're being victimized when they're not realizing what black folks are saying is, excuse me, the numbers don't tell the whole story. And we're incredibly victimized. And you can't relate because it doesn't happen to you. It's hard for them to grasp that reality sometimes. And that's where we are. That's where Brett Favre is.
All right. I'll leave you with this. So in response to Favre's comments, former NFL receiver Torrey Smith retweeted this. I'm 1,000% comfortable saying if it isn't about playing quarterback, don't ask Brett Favre. Before we go to break, Stephen A., I understand you had something you wanted to enlighten us on here.
Yeah, yesterday when Spike Lee was on, I brought up ownership. I brought up D. Wade in Utah. Didn't seem right.
Yep.
Shaq in Sacramento instead of L.A. Didn't seem right, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I got a call from the Miami Heat yesterday. I haven't been able to reach Dwayne Wade, but according to folks in Miami, Dwayne Wade was offered an ownership stake by the Miami Heat. Mickey Harrison wanted him to have an ownership stake in the Miami Heat. And they didn't know about D. Wade, getting an ownership stake in Utah until D. Wade let them know maybe about 24 hours before it was announced. So they just wanted to make sure that folks knew that. Mickey Harrison loves Dwayne Wade and wanted Dwayne Wade, to have a similar role in Miami. I reached out to Dwayne Wade. I haven't been able to reach him to validate that, but it was made very, very clear to me that Miami, that's exactly the role they wanted Dwayne Wade to play. And for some reason or another, I guess his relationship with the new owner in Utah or whatever the case may be, that's just the direction that he wanted to go in. But they wanted him to have that role in Miami. It just didn't happen. They wanted to make sure that was clear.
Mickey Harrison gave Pat Riley a piece, Stephen A., when the Knicks wouldn't, and that's why he's in Miami now.
Yeah, very interesting. I'd love to hear if that is true, that sentiment, why D. Wade ultimately went with Utah.
It is.
Maybe we will. Obviously, he's always welcome to join us, friend of the show. All right, when we come back, guys, Eagles coach Nick Sirianni declining to name Jalen Hurts the starter. Is Hurts being disrespected? And what's going on with Philadelphia? And will Jorge Masvidal get